Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. My name is José Barzola. Welcome to our Careers in Peacebuilding Talk Story Series. I'm here with the Matsunaga Institute for Peace at the University of Hawaiʻi, Mānoa. Our talk story today is on perseverance to build community with Miku Narisawa. Thank you for joining us today to learn about the journey into the profession. Our event today is co-sponsored by the Lōkahi Foundation that has developed the Change Academy, TCA, which is a unique immersive leadership opportunity for globally minded high school youth, allowing them to meet together in the Hawaiian Islands during the summer. TCA offers hand-on project-based learning, team building, and cross-cultural dialogue. The experience fosters leadership skills and motivation for youth participants who want to take positive action in their communities, and will equip students with critical 21st century skills. You can definitely learn more about the organization at Lōkahi-Foundation.org. I'll put their link in the chat in a bit. Thank you for joining us to explore the meaning of peace, quote unquote, from Miko's experience with natural disasters and how the community in Hawaii guided her journey to find her passion. Miku Narisawa is an alumni of the Matsunaga Institute who will talk about her community building work in an island community in Miyagi, Japan, where they were facing challenges of preserving aquaculture, natural landscape, and people from climate change. Little bit about our special guest today. Miku is an educational facilitator at Lōkahi Foundation, where she coordinates international leadership programs for youth. She's currently a graduate student majoring in peace and environment in Tokyo after graduating from the University of Hawaiʻi at Mānoa in 2020. Miku is involved in the local development projects to support and promote aquaculture in her hometown, Miyagi prefecture in Japan. And after experiencing the Great East Japan earthquake at the age of 12, creating peace in her community and for the people around her became a central focus and a passion of hers. And so to get us started, I'm going to turn it over to our special guest and friend, Miku.
Hi,
welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Jose, for the introductions. And good morning from Japan, and hello, everyone. My name is Miku Narisawa. I'm currently a graduate student at Meiji University in Tokyo, majoring in environmental peace. And I'm also educational facilitator at Lōkahi Foundations in Honolulu, Hawaii. So today I wanted to share a little of my experience back in 2011 when I experienced the Great East Japan earthquake and tsunami at the age of 12, and how the community in Hawaii guided a pathway and to the current the program that I've involved in the community. So before I started, some of the name I recognize them, and osashiburi desu. Thank you for joining. Let's see. So I'm gonna share the screen if that's okay. I will share the screen. Okay. Can everyone see the screen now? Okay, great. So as Jose introduced a little bit, so I'm currently serves as an educational facilitator at Lōkahi Foundations, and we have a youth leadership program called the Change Academy. So before COVID happens, we invite a high school student from Japan and Hawaii in the islands of Hawaii, the Big Islands, to do a leadership learning opportunity program. And so the TCA is unique immersive leadership learning opportunity for high school from Japan and Hawaii. And we focus on the concept of sustainability, also history of Hawaii. And one main thing is the learning about the wayfinding that a lot of Polynesian community have built. So that's kind of main thing. But because of COVID, we are kind of pausing the program for a little bit. But for the past 2 years, we are also doing an online program with past students who joined the program before COVID and just reconnect to each other. And also we do offer some online courses as well right now. see. Okay. So for introductions, I am from Japan, and I'm from Miyagi Prefecture, Japan. And in the Miyagi Prefecture, Japan, I am from Higashimatsushima City. So Miyagi Prefecture is located in the Tohoku region. It's a northern part of Japan. And our prefecture is facing a Pacific Ocean, and we also have a beautiful mountains out there. It's really quiet place from Tokyo. From Tokyo, I would say if you take a fast train, it's gonna take 90 minutes from Tokyo. So as you can see in the picture on the right side, this is where I'm from, Matsushima, Higashi Matsushima City. So we have really a lot of tiny islands, because Matsu means pine tree in Japanese, and Shima means island. So people don't live in the tiny islands, but there's over 100 or 200 tiny islands out there. Okay, so this is where I'm from, and I was born and raised in a small village in Higashimatsushima City, and both great grandparents and grandparents are rice farmers. So I always had an environment where I was surrounded by beautiful nature, beautiful oceans since I was little. Okay, so back in 2011, the Great Japan earthquake happened, as many of you know, and I was still at elementary school. So Japanese school grade is kind of different. So if it's in Hawaii, I was first year in the middle school. I was still sixth grade in elementary school in Japan when the earthquake happens. So the left picture is the picture from Air Force Base that we have in our city. So after we experienced a huge earthquake, I evacuated to the top floor of the elementary school that I was at by the time with my sister. So because tsunami came to our elementary school, we couldn't go back to home, or after that we realized that our house was destroyed by tsunami, and some of my friends passed away. But because I was still at the age of 12, I realized that I wasn't really be able to process what happened and what's going on in my city, what happened to my friends, and stuff like that. But this year, I think it marked 11 years from the earthquake. And then I think after 8 years or 7 years passed, then I finally started gradually processing, the trauma and, what happens to my community and how my community has been going through after the disaster. So it took quite a lot of time to process that. And the right picture is where my community was. So as you know, a lot of houses were destroyed, a lot of buildings, car was destroyed. So it's 11 years ago. So, but yeah, these are some picture from back from 2011 when the tsunami and the earthquake happened. So I wanted to share this photo. So this is where I'm from. The right side is the Pacific Oceans, and the left picture is the picture of before tsunami, and the right picture is after the tsunami. So in the middle of the picture, you will see the baseball stadium, the gym, and the big park, and we also have a huge amount of rice field in our city. But after the tsunami, you can see everything was under the water. So for example, for the rice field, even after 11 years after the tsunami, the farmers are still struggling to grow rice because of, once the salt water it's in the field, it's kind of hard for rice to grow. So some of the farmer from this area just gave up, maintaining their field. But luckily, my family rice field was mountainside, so we didn't have any effects from that. But yeah, some farmers and because our city relies on a lot of aquaculture industry such as oyster and the seaweed, a lot of those farmers and fishermen are still struggling, not just because of the salt water, but also the Fukushima, what happened in the Fukushima nuclear power stations as well. You know, as many of you know, because the government are trying to release the contamination water in a couple of years from now. So that's one of the things that a lot of fishermen are struggling right now. How we can solve this as a community, how we can stop this as a community. Yeah, so these are the current issues that we have in the city. And as you can see in the top side of the picture, there's Air Force Base, you can see there. And of course, Air Force Base was also damaged by the tsunami. But this is where the US Army came and helped our community back in 2011 too. Let's see, yeah, so this is kind of short story of my experience with the Great East Japan earthquake back in 2011. And I wanted to share how, what kind of journey I've been through and how I got to this point. So after the earthquake, I had the opportunity to visit Turkey and Bulgaria. After my city became a sister city with Bulgaria. So that was my first trip to outside of Japan. And I wasn't really interested leaving Japan because of what happened. You know, because I was so still like healing with trauma and everything, I wasn't emotionally stable neither. But my mom and my dad, my parents kind of pushed me and they encouraged me to try to go to abroad so that, you know, I can get a fresh air and being in the new environments as well. So then I did. And then this trip really changed my life from now. And, you know, I shared what happened back in 2011. And, you know, a lot of students from Bulgaria and Turkey, they were really interested about Japanese culture and also, you know, my experience with tsunami as well. So then I went back to Japan, and next year, this is that was the first time I visited Hawaii with the program called Rainbow Japan Kit. Some of you helped this program for quite a long time, so I really appreciate your continued support. So Rainbow Japan Kids was founded in Hawaii. So a lot of companies and nonprofit organizations collaborated together to invite middle schoolers from Japan who were affected by the tsunami. And I think the Rainbow Japan Kids continue for over 5 years, 6 years. And they invited over 200 middle schoolers to Hawaii to just spend time with local students from Hawaii and, you know, just interact with the community in Hawaii. So I was one of the students, I was one of the cohort of a program. And since then I had connections and I had opportunity to help the program as well. So then I came back to Hawaii in 2015 and then 2017 and 2017 as well. But meantime, I went to France to go to high school. So one of my dream since I was little was to work at the international organizations such as United Nations, because what I experienced back in 2011 and then experienced the earthquake and tsunami really changed my mind and the way that I see the world as well. And I learned the importance of building a community and also the peace building. But a lot of times when we talk about disaster or natural disaster, people often tend to really focus on just the bigger scale. But what I think is important is the building the peace or peace building within yourself or within individual, not the bigger scale first. So then I was really interested in those kind of peace building. And of course, I wanted to learn some language besides English. So then I decided to try myself and spend some time in France as well. And after I graduated from high school, I decided to come back to Hawaii to pursue undergraduate degree in peace and conflict resolutions. So I went to UH Mānoa for 3 years. And then COVID happened. And I was planning to stay in Hawaii for a little bit more, but because of COVID, I had to come back to Japan. Then meantime, I graduated from UH Mānoa back in 2020. And since 2021, I started my master's degree at Meiji University in Tokyo. So that's kind of my little bit of a journey and how I got back to Japan. But because of COVID, since 2014 or 2015, I wasn't really had time to spend with my family as well. So thankfully, it was really great to be connected with my family and know more about the community and where I was born and raised. So today I wanted to share a little of what I'm doing currently besides graduate school. So because I started graduate school during COVID time, a lot of classes were online, and although my schools are located in Tokyo, I'm mostly based in Miyagi right now, and I'm taking online class as well. So I'm working on the project with both federal and local regional government to promote islands and aquaculture for mainly oyster and seaweeds. So my project is based on the Urato Islands. So Urato Islands are a group of inhabited islands located in the Matsushima Bay. So Matsushima Bay is right next to where I'm from, Higashi Matsushima. So Higashi means east. So my city is really called East Matsushima. But there's a different town called Matsushima City, not Matsushima town. So Urato Island is located in the Matsushima Bay in the Shiogama City. So it's kind of between Higashi Matsushima, Matsushima, and Shiogama City. So there are 4 islands in Urato Islands. One is Katsurashima, Nonoshima, Hojima, and Sabusawa. And people still live there about, so the history beside Urato Islands is really, has a really deep history since I think Edo period. So it's like 1700. A lot of travelers from north to Tokyo. So Tokyo was still capital in the Edo period and Kyoto as well. So then they traveled and they delivered a rice to the Tokyo and Kyoto. So that was kind of a way to stop their ship and stuff like that. So it was kind of popular place back in Edo period as well. Yeah, so as you can see the photo on the right side, there's the tiny island, 4 islands, and then I think about 200 people still live there. But the age-wise, I would say above 80% are above 75 years old. So there's only 1 middle schoolers who live in the islands. But interestingly, in the islands, there are both elementary school and a middle school. But they have over 40 students. So how they get to the student in the island. So it's interesting. So every morning, about 40 students take a boat to the islands to go to elementary and the middle school from the mainland. It's only about 30 minutes from the mainland to take a boat. So a lot of, kids prefer to be in the nature school in Japan as well. So that's kind of interesting things to learn from Urato Island as well. So in the islands, of course, compared to mainland, in Miyagi, the island is really quiet, of course, because they don't have a lot of populations and they don't have a lot of young people, but still you can do kayaking and hiking and just enjoy the view as well. So that's kind of island's charm that we promote. but at the same time, as I mentioned, those islands are kind of struggling right now as we facing aging society and aging populations. So as I said, about over 80% of the population are above 75 years old. So if you are like 40s or 50s, 60s, you would consider as a young generation still. So that's kind of the island's life that we have here. And island's challenges that they facing, the issue that facing are lack of people, lack of young generations in the islands. And why we are trying to promote this islands is because of the, I would say, the traditions that they still keep or they still hold on to it is something that we can't learn from other parts of Japan. So for example, this island or this Matsushima Bay Area is known for oysters. And because of the environments that they have, we can, we can collect the seed oyster naturally. So we import the seed oyster to other parts of Japan or even other outside of Japan, such as France, Singapore, or US or Canada. So in order to maintain the oyster industry, we need to continue the industry in the islands as well. But growing oysters or collecting a seed oyster needs a lot of technique and experience. People can't just go to the farm and learn within 1 year. That's not going to happen. So you need at least, I would say, 10 years or 20 years of experience to grow a nice and fresh oyster. But yeah, so because of the oyster, they need more help to it. So that's one thing that we are working on, and also a rice field. You can see on the right side of the slide. And interestingly, these islands doesn't have a river. So, growing rice needs water, right? But these farmers there's only actually 2 farmers left right now. But one of the farmers that we work with, he collects water from rain. So that's the only way that he can grow, rice. But those kind of things, it's a traditional knowledge that has been passed down from generation to generations. So these are the things that we wanted to protect and pass down to next generations as well. Okay, so a little bit of a concept that we are working on. So we are working on based of the concept of philantourism. So of course, Matsushima, some of you may know, Matsushima is a really popular tourist place in Japan. So of course, we get a lot of tourists, but in order to save or protect our islands, we need some different perspective into tourism. So a lot of times, the tourism comes to the place and, they enjoy the view or, they enjoy their foods. So it's kind of only one way, only like providing economic support to the community. And after the disaster, there is a term called volunteerism, so volunteer and tourism. So they come to the community and help the community by solving problems. But the issue was that they only stay there for short term, and it's only one time or a couple of times. They don't really have a connections after that. However, so one of the coworkers that I worked with, she created a term called philantourism. So philantourism is a form of tourism that creates a circle of support for the destinations by creating support for visitors to participate in activities that benefit both community and the future visitors. For example, rice field. This year and last year, we asked a visitor to help the rice field, and a lot of visitors from Tokyo or a city, they don't really get to experience being in the rice field, and they don't really know where's the rice is coming from. So that's one way to promote the islands. You just get connected with the community, the people live there, and just experience the island's life. So that's what we are also working on. Yeah, so experiencing the island's life. Sorry. Okay. So this year too, we are trying to work on local fishermen as well, and also a local chef. So in the bay, we set up like, we set the restaurant out of the oceans. So that's one thing that we are trying to promote islands as well, so that, you know, it's this is like kind of experience that you can really get other parts of Japan. So we only use a local product, local sake, local rice as well. So that was kind of popular too, but you know, because of you need a good weather condition to do this, so we don't really do often. But yeah, hopefully after COVID, we can restart this project and, you know, activities again. Okay, so as I conclude a little bit, so back in 2011, after experiencing the Great East Japan earthquake and tsunami when I was 12 years old, you know, it was really trauma, and of course there was a sad moments that I experienced, but because I experienced that, I learned the importance of building community, not only in my community, but also within myself. So then I started thinking about peace educations, and I tried to push myself and live in different environments outside of Japan. Then I forgot to mention, but when I was living in France back in 2015, then there's the I also experienced the ISIS. There is a terrorism happened in Paris back in 2015. So that also made me thinking, what is peace? Like, you know, what is the role of religions? What is, you know, how we can, you know, I was still back in high school, so I wasn't really thinking that much, but I started thinking like how we can solve this. It's a really big question, but it kind of narrowed down to where it kind of narrowed down to you know, how I go to Hawaii and studied peace education as well. And so, you know, I went to Mānoa, and after graduate, I kind of first back into Japan, but at the same time, I was, you know, able to re-exploring my identity during COVID time, and, you know, know more about my community, where I'm from, you know, where I was born. Then I started involving those kind of program with my community and really working on towards future, how we can protect our islands, how we can save our islands from climate change as well. So that's kind of the journey that I've been through so far, and you know, what's next. So I'm still working on my master's program, but a master's degree, but hopefully I can go into higher educations next year and continue working in my community as well. So being in a community and working in aquaculture industry needs a lot of commitments, I would say. You know, a lot of people are getting old in the islands and in my community, so we don't have really time. So, you know, I would say, for example, oyster industry, we can't just solve by young people. We need a scientist to solve the oyster project. That's all. Because of the climate change, the shape of the oyster are kind of changing, because, you know, the water is getting hotter and hotter warm every year. So we need a scientist perspective for that. At the same time, we need an educator in the islands who can really interact with students and, you know, teach about the importance of maybe being in nature and the sustainability, and also disaster education as well. So that's something that I'm currently working on. So yeah, this it was kind of short, but if you have any questions, please feel free to unmute yourself, and yeah, or Jose, yeah. I know Jose came to my city back in 2018 or 19, and we went to fishing in like a fishing boat at 4 a.m. So maybe you could share a little bit of your experience and how, you know, what did you see in my community?
Thank you, Miku. I was just sharing in the chat a little bit further about both the earthquake, tsunami, and the Paris attacks. Just there's additional information online, but just to kind of, if people want to get further information on that. But as far as I thank you so much. I think this is really amazing, the work that's being done. Honestly, out of my 10-day trip to Japan, which included Nagasaki, Tokyo, and then your community of Higashima, Tsushima, I gotta say, it was one of the highlights, just being able to, growing up mostly in rural communities and farm communities, I really got to appreciate that. It felt home-like. It felt, I personally, going into the community, understanding the history of what happened in 2011, what I was fascinated by was, many times you think about, oh, something bad has happened here. Well, then maybe we should just move, somewhere where that won't happen. And it was fascinating to me to see how many, it's like, okay, well, we rebuild and we plan for the next one, basically. It'll be another 100 years or so.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that resiliency and just the power of community coming together, and it was beautiful. And just learning about, you talk about the rice fields, and I love the innovation of like, well, the rice fields can't be utilized now for rice because of the salt water, but we're going to use them for solar panels, I remember.
Yes.
And so it's like, we're not going to waste any of the land here. There's definitely, and so although it's farmland, it's still it's modern in certain areas. You're still, and yes, I could see as you talk about the aging population, and that I feel like is a constant theme in lots of parts of the world, unfortunately. Like even here in Hawaii, as I look at different organizations or nonprofits, many times it's people who are retired, and there's always that trying to find the youth who can carry on these messages in the community building. And so thank you for what you do there. I truly, the highlight of my trip was that, the net fishing trip. Like it was 3-4 o'clock in the morning, but I got to be with, it wasn't a tourist attraction. I got to see the everyday life of someone who lives there. And yes, I didn't actually do net fishing, just to clarify. I sat in the corner while the fishermen did the work. It was amazing. It was better than any like National Geographic like video you can. And so yeah, just to learn about the process of, they had caught lots of, sardines, I remember.
Yes, sardines.
And I was like, I'm like, okay, I guess they're going to be dragging that back. And so, but no, and this is part of the lessons that come along with just, you do this and you know how to pivot. And it was like, no, we're not going to collect all these, because as I was informed, there's one company that does all the sardine processing and has a factory and all that. And so they were like, well, we'll just let them know. So then, we'll sell it to them. And so for a little bit less of a profit, they can do all the labor of dragging out the fish. And yeah, it was just, in my mind, I was like, oh no, we caught fish. They need to like move it back. But then it was like, oh yeah, wait, where are we going to store that till like Monday or Tuesday when that company opens up? And so, yeah, it just made sense to utilize the resources and nature in itself as, the water itself is just a place for it. So yeah, there's a lot of wonderful lessons that we're taking. Oh, we have questions from the audience. I just realized.
Sorry, before I forget, I wanted to mention one thing. So, back in Japan after COVID, during COVID, And I started thinking the definition of sustainability. In this modern world, a lot of people or a lot of, I would say governments and companies are trying to use sustainable or sustainability really often without meaning, mean it. But, in my community or in the islands, in our neighbor islands, we can grow our food, we can catch a fish in the oceans, we can grow rice, and then we do also vegetations. So, it's kind of life that people used to live back in old time, and that's where sustainability has come from. And because of human activity, we have climate change, we have environmental impacts and water shortage. So, being back at a community really made me thinking, what is sustainable or what is sustainability, and how we can pass their traditional knowledge to the next generations as well. And also one thing is that my community is not really trying to promote the natural disaster. So a lot of people often describe our city as a like survivor city or, from tsunami. And I really didn't like that definition when I was middle school or high school. Because, of course, there's a people passed away or, there's a building was destroyed, and that's all the sad thing happens. But that's not the end of, I try to think that that's not the end of the world. And the only way is to just move forward, keep going. And of course, it took time. And it took almost like 7 or 8 years for me to really process and understand what happens and the meaning behind the natural disaster. But as I reflect right now, it was kind of long journey to process and just, to this point, but I think it was kind of short. Now I reflect, but yeah.
No, thank you. I love that perspective of, we're not just defined by that one incident that happened here. There's like so much more rich knowledge, and I love the focus on the ancestral knowledge really as we move forward. And that's really where, we talk about sustainability as though it's this nuanced thing in the world. But if we look at a lot of ancestral or indigenous knowledge, and it originated, there wasn't climate. Otherwise, we would have had climate change like 100 years ago. But it is definitely an issue that's arisen from recent issues. I do want to pay some of the questions we have in the audience. But someone was, what do you find helps you gather community as a young woman? How have allies in the community supported your leadership?
Yes, thank you for your questions. And if I to answer your questions, I would say, let me think a little bit. I would say, so as I said, as we are facing an aging society, a lot of, people in my community are kind of elderly people. So they really care about the young people. And if I being honest, a lot of people really don't ended up being here. So a lot of people go to university in this university or go to work in the Sendai city. So which Sendai is the biggest city in my region, in my prefecture. So it's about like 1 hour from my city, but people just move there, or even Tokyo, Osaka, those kind of cities. But I would say the knowledge or commitments that those elderly people taught me really helped me to just move forward as a young leader as well. And I would say, so there is only 2 young people that went to abroad from my community. So I was one of them. So I feel little bit pressures from the community. Being in academia was not something that I was taught while I grew up in my community, because we're living really countryside, so we don't really have those kind of really higher educational resources. So being in academia, being in abroad, sometimes I feel really pressures, but a lot of people in my community really supported me through this journey, and and I think now they're pretty happy that I'm back to the community after spending some time in abroad. Yeah.
Thank you. Well, we have lots of wonderful words from our audience about mahalo for this program, very powerful testimony. Thank you for sharing with clarity the powerful inner work you did in order to do the powerful work at scale. Thank you for sharing your wonderful work and your global thinking. What a wonderful presentation. Oh, here we go, another question. Do youngsters from your community reach out to you, or do you reach out to them to share the stories?
Okay, let me read it. Yes, sometimes, but one of the issues that we have in our community is education. So we have a lot of great community resources, such as fishermen, or we also have horse ranch that they're working on forest restorations. But a lot of we don't have a private school in my city because it's small, but those public schools are not really working with the community yet, I would say. So sometimes I have to reach out to school or teachers if we can collaborate, those kind of community activity in their education curriculum as well. But yeah, but once I talk my story, then a lot of young generations in my city get interest just being in abroad too. So yeah.
Thank you. If anyone else has any questions, please feel free to, put it in the chat or unmute yourself and share openly. I have a question as far as like, how do you feel it sounds as though you become an ambassador, not only for having gone outside. I know you probably don't like that terminology, but as aging populations are looking for younger populations to carry on, you are kind of like at the spotlight of this. I don't know if you're going through your 10-year journey to learn how to properly grow rice or oysters, but simultaneously, you're kind of, what I love about the peace building work is the relationship building, that you're definitely doing that. And simultaneously, you are becoming the bridge between, as you share your stories, youth are connecting with you, and ideally, maybe possibly you can connect them with some of these opportunities that, the community's handling, and as they're looking for others to take up the ranks. Because, not everybody wants to like, oh, I'm going to finish up school and like, I may leave, but some people want to come back home. I mean, there's great power in comfort and love in that, and I think that's quite amazing, the support that you have from your own family to it's like whatever you choose. I see as though they've been very supportive, and so I think that creates a good infrastructure as you move forward. And so but where is the question? What do you, I guess my overall thoughts would be around, and I know you don't like the spotlight of being an ambassador, but and you may not know what's next per se, but could you see like a future there and continue developing some of the great work?
Yeah, thank you for the question. It's kind of, if I be honest, it's still hard to say if I want to be there in my community in Japan for quite a long time. I also have myself that I who want to explore different, parts of the world still. So I'm kind of still, trying to find a way. Yeah, but
Yeah,
but in the oyster work, like aquaculture work, is something that I want to be involved for a long time, even if I work from outside of Japan. So because I know the community wants a young people's help, different perspective, So yeah, I really enjoying those kind of oyster work and aquaculture work, islands work that I've been fortunate to work with. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, since I connected with you about and learning further about your aquaculture group or work that you've been doing, I'm slowly learning more about the field and how it's of interest, not just in your area or not just in Japan. It's from New York to Canada to all parts of the world, and it's truly helping in combating some of the negative effects of climate change. So it's a good area to be in. So I imagine it'll take you.
But I also wanna try my best to be in the academia field as well. Being in academia was not something that was offered or taught or suggested when I grew up here. So after I went to Hawaii and being in the UH or after I came back to Japan and being in the graduate school, it really taught me the importance of or the power of academic. So then if I could be in academia field, that would be my ideal, but still I don't know, I might be ended up just working in the
no
aquaculture field.
I think some of the the faculty that students truly appreciate are not the ones that are just publishing the latest things, but the ones that are connected to the community. And so it sounds like you have a good balance on the rise for you as the future nears. No pressure at all. Just enjoy the journey, honestly. You're doing some great work. We have some more questions in the audience. Are you interested in working with the UN Youth, a UN Youth Delegate Program out of the United Nations for Youth, I guess?
Yes.
Okay,
if I had the opportunity, I would love to, but thank you for the link.
Well, they provided a link. And if you are, actually, we can talk later and I can connect you to some people. But any other questions from our audience today? I gotta say, it's pretty amazing just how community in general kind of came together to, as you were a youth yourself, to kind of provide you some guidance or some normalcy, of a youth in the midst of tragedy. And just I think it's great to see how now it's a cycle, like you're giving it back now, in a different way. So keep at it. Well, I just want to thank you, for allowing us to learn more about your work and for the wealth of knowledge that can guide future peace-related projects. I truly appreciate opening up about your experience and your history a little bit, and what's been learned and what's come out of today's dialogue. And just very valuable, tips, and I know very useful for future peace builders. One of the whole intents of this series is the fact that it's so powerful to be creating, social change in so many aspects of our lives. And that's exactly what you've been doing and continue to do. So thank you for your kindness and leadership in the field as we explore journey into the profession. And last but not least, I want to thank everyone in today's webinar. We deeply appreciate your interest and support in joining us to learn exploring journey into the profession through our careers in peace building talk story.
Sorry, can I just send the link for the conference that I'll be speaking in the end of November? Yes, I'll just send the link to the chat if that's okay.
Yep. No, of course.
I sent the link to the chat, but there will be a conference based in New Zealand's the University of Otago, and it'll be the hybrid style, so you can listen to talks from online or Zoom as well, and it's free. And I'll be speaking my experience and how a young, my perspective of the oceans and the connections between human and the oceans in our community. And we'll also talk about how the Fukushima nuclear plant, power plant disaster affects our community from the fishery perspective. And I'll be talking with the local fish, seaweed oyster. No, sorry, it's not seaweed oyster, I mixed up. I'll be talking with a seaweed fisherman and just explore different kinds of elements that we have in our community. So some of it, I learned from being in Hawaii. I think the concept is that it's kind of similar. I don't want to say similar, but it's called kind of like aloha aina. So we really take care of our lands even if you want a good oceans or good environments, marine environments. So those kind of concepts that we are going to share in the conference.
No, thank you. Yes, I highly recommend. And for anyone who is still with us, the days of the conference, Hawaii time will be actually on Thanksgiving Day, that Thursday, and that Friday. It'll be from 10 to 6:30 p.m. So, hopefully in between some celebrations, you can log in. But Miku's event will be on the second day, so it'll be on Friday.
The Black Friday day.
Yes. Everyone shops online anyway, so it's quite okay.
And then I think at Hawaii time, I'll be presenting from 3 or 4 p.m. Yeah, on 25th on Friday.
Yeah, so yeah, I actually I shared in the link page to our beacon, but I'll also share a link to our recent newsletter. And I do a little, I forget what page it's on, but it'll be at 12 p.m. Hawaii time and 2 p.m. Hawaii time.
And it's gonna be a collaborative panel with young leaders from Pacific Islands as well, from Marshall Islands, Micronesia, and the Palau and Japan. Yeah.
Well, thank you, everyone. I also just want to give a big shout out to the Global Learning Festival that for the third year in a row has hosted us and allowed us to collaborate with them. There's a plethora of events happening from November 6th to November 9th. Diane did a wonderful job of putting that in the chat, but it's globallearningfestival.com. You can learn more about other events that are coming up.